A man carries a 60 billion double-dollar bounty on his head. Everyone is hunting him, yet he only sees the good in everyone, preaching love and peace. This is the story of Trigun, and these stories are just a glimpse.
Hey, what's going on, guys? I hope you're all doing well. It's been definitely a while since I've stood in front of the camera with a microphone in my hand, and I'm sorry about this very blank and boring background. I was hoping to get my green screen set up for this video, but clearly I did not get the materials to set that up, so hopefully in the next one we'll have the green screen up and have some shenanigans up behind me. But yeah, thank you guys so much for clicking on this video, and if you don't mind, please bear with me a little bit. I'm new to this form of content. I don't normally have like a script in front of me and everything below my laptop, but yeah, so enjoy. Trigun Multiple Bullets is a one-shot manga with 8 chapters, originally published in Japan in 2011, eventually coming over to the States in 2013. This manga tells 7 completely different stories, and are all told by completely different people. The creator of the series, Yoshihiro Naitao, only worked on the first story, covering the first 2 chapters of this manga. And, of course, those chapters are incredible. I've watched the show about half a dozen times by now, and this is actually my first real introduction to the manga, and I can't say anything more than it was a perfect introduction. Before we move on, however, there are a few things I'd like to say. I'm horrible at pronouncing names, so hopefully I won't butcher everyone too badly. And also, today we'll only be covering chapters 1 through 4. Realizing this when I was writing, actually, I had a lot to say about these first 4 chapters, and I wanted to have the rest of the chapters get their own segment. If you're worried about spoilers at all for the manga or the anime, it doesn't actually matter. All of these chapters are actually anthology stories told in the world of Trigun. None of them are actually canon or anything, so you can easily read through this story, get an idea of the characters, but not actually having it impact the story whatsoever. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's get into it. Chapters 1 and 2, Trigun Badlands Rumble, Extra Showdown with the Dodongo Brothers, and Honeycomb Village, Parts 1 and 2. If you haven't already seen Trigun, and take a look at these panels, you can easily see Naitao's penmanship. Reading this feels like you're watching an episode of the show. It even somewhat follows the same formula of each episode. For those who don't know, a typical Trigun episode goes like this. Vash and friends make their way to a new town. The town is facing some sort of trouble, either that being financial or the town being in some sort of danger. Vash and friends team up and gain the trust of the town, beat the bad guy, and save the town, and giving the reward to the townspeople, not without unfortunately causing some collateral damage along the way. Cut to black, roll credits. Every episode may follow the same formula, but each explores new themes and character exploration for even the characters that are just one-shot characters in the episode. We get a whole backstory, at least somewhat of a backstory, and an insight into their morality, even some cases like philosophies that they believe in, and why they chose to go on the path they went down. The chapter begins with our faithful protagonist, Vash the Stampede, captured by the villain of the week, the Dodongo Brothers. Don't let their goofy appearance fool you. These guys are dangerous. The two have Vash held at gunpoint, and it seems as though Vash isn't getting out of this scenario. The only thing he's able to do is tap his foot lightly on the floor. Silence fills the room as Vash's foot tapping suddenly stops. Bullets are fired below the floorboards as Nicholas D. Wolfwood, one of Vash's companions, and traveling priest. More on him later, though. All you need to know now, he's a complete and utter badass. Vash falls to the floor. We get a pretty hilarious panel of Vash injured. There are a ton more of these panels like this throughout these 2 chapters. Vash can be fairly serious when he needs to be, but this crude version of him is the real Vash. And changing the art style to convey that is a great use of visual storytelling. This is Night Owl at his best. Vash and Wolfwood make their escape with the help of two other companions, Millie and Meryl. They are two insurance workers who try their best to make sure no collateral damage happens when Vash fights, because if so, the insurance company they work for will unfortunately have to cover all the damages. The two girls themselves are actually two very funny and dynamic characters. Meryl respects the fact that Vash refuses to take lives, but she's worried that his carelessness will eventually get himself killed. Millie is always looking for some type of dessert, and isn't exactly the smartest in the group. But don't let that fool you though. She will fuck you up. As the four make their escape from the Dodongo brothers, two mysterious figures seem to be spying on Vash and his companions. We'll soon come to know these two as Rainjacket and Balzac. Sorry. I'm an adult with a degree. This shouldn't be funny. Rainjacket and Balzac. Damn it. Balzac, Beauregard, and Rainjacket. There, that's it. From now on, we're just going to be calling him Beauregard because I clearly can't be serious for 2 seconds. It's later revealed that these two are from the town Haley Crowd, and it's been under siege from the Dodongo brothers for quite a while now. So many times that they've left the town looking like a giant piece of scrap metal. The brothers come often and take the money of the townspeople, and if they don't have any money to give, they just shoot up the place, causing more and more collateral damage, and possibly even taking some innocent lives. The townspeople don't have enough money for food and live in horrible living conditions. They ask Vash to come back to the town and protect them from the Dodongo brothers. The townspeople of Haleycombe look rough. Their clothes are tattered, children are terrified of anyone who isn't their parents, and seemingly won't trust anyone. Until a charming old lady approaches Vash with what little food she has in service of him protecting the town. This moment really just struck a chord with me. It just gives you the idea of how badly these people have been treated, that they'll trust almost no one. Someone of their own has to physically give Vash probably what little food she has left, just so he'll protect them. And not being rude, obviously, Vash takes a bite and believes it to be the best thing he's ever tasted. With the very much dismay of his friends, Vash takes the job and starts protecting the town. The panels we get of the quiet town are extremely powerful. There's something so eerie and unsettling. Not in a suspenseful way by any means, but in a bittersweet, somber kind of way. These men keep watch every day and night, not being able to see their families. They all look tired and lost. Vash eventually ditches the others and heads outside to join with Wolfwood. This moment, right here, made this entire chapter for me. This is the moment where we talk a little bit more about Wolfwood. Even though he's a traveling priest ridding the world of sin, he himself loves to indulge in such sin. He indulges much more than Vash. Yeah, Vash drinks, but not as much as Wolfwood. Yeah, Vash is sad of the state of the world, but not as sad as Wolfwood. Vash is a gunman who refuses to kill, with a $60 billion double dollar bounty on his head. Wolfwood has no bounty and takes it upon himself to kill others when necessary. So you can see how these two ideologies could never really work together, but they somehow do. If you all could just humor me just for one moment, I'd like to read some of these pages to you. Vash? What are you doing? What do you mean? You just keep doing the same old thing over and over. I'm getting really tired of it. The Dodongo brothers should have died that day at the Fort Zuda 13 years ago. But you had to step in and save them. And so, just look at these villagers. I pity them. If things worked out as they should have, the villagers would have no worries. Nothing's changed. Only time has passed. The weak will always suffer. You know that I'm right. Yeah? Yeah? Yeah. Oh man. He knocked me off my stride again. You know, that's what makes me so angry. He knows all of this to the core. I wish the idiot would just put himself in my position for once. Hopefully you all can see why that moment made the whole story. Watching these two ideologies clash in not a fight or an altercation, a conversation between two friends. It's really deep, honestly, and Trigun's full of that. Following the conversation, we cut to the Dodongo brothers, as Beauregard has been working for the brothers the whole time. This is a nice little twist, but we didn't really get to spend enough time with Beauregard, so it doesn't feel as impactful as it should be. End of chapter 1. I really liked this chapter overall. Cutting it off where it did feels like a mid-roll while watching the show. Chapter 2 begins with Vash, Wolfwood, and Beauregard waiting for the next Dodongo brothers attack. The brothers show, and right as the fight would begin, Beauregard betrays Vash and Wolfwood, shooting Vash in the back. When it looks like Vash and Wolfwood might actually die in this altercation, the townspeople themselves, who have been so scared this whole time, stand up for themselves and take a shot at the eldest Dodongo brother. This obviously pisses him off. The two are about to open fire on the village, but not before Millie and Meryl can distract the brothers as Vash and Wolfwood pull off one of the most badass things I have ever seen in a manga. Vash and Wolfwood literally lift up Wolfwood's giant crossgun and put it on their arms, using it as a cast to protect their broken limbs. So badass. Beauregard fires rockets, and being the absolute badass that Vash is, he changes the trajectory of the rockets by shooting at them. Yeah, he's that good of a gunman. Because of the trajectory of the missiles, they go back at the brothers, exploding the area around them, leaving all three of them incapacitated. The chapter ends with various crude panels. Vash gives the townspeople the money for the capture of the brothers, and Wolfwood attempts to make a joke, but falls flat. End of chapter. Overall, these chapters were great. Both absolute bangers. The art is beautiful and is structured just like an episode. There's tons of comedy and some of the best action pages I've ever seen in manga. It can be a little confusing at times, but I could say the exact same thing about my favorite manga series, Bleach. Chapter 3, Trigun, The Lost Planet. Written and drawn by Boichi. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing anything again. I really do apologize. Let me just start by saying that this chapter's art is downright beautiful. Some of the most detailed pages I've ever seen. The shading is also exceptional. 10 out of 10. 100% art-wise. Definitely. Just, I can't get over it, honestly. It's just downright beautiful. In the world of Trigun, the town's electricity is run by these living beings called plants. They're as strong as gods, but their powers are too chaotic to live outside the confines of a power plant. A rogue plant is calling for someone by the name of VTS. A woman by the name Veronica Sabusa hears the call. She runs into Vash along her journey to the voice, but the two are attacked by bandits, and Vash leads them away as Veronica makes her way down to the plant. The plant reveals that it's pregnant. Vash shows up mysteriously. The VTS the plant was trying to summon was none other than Vash the Stampede. The plant asks Vash to kill it and its unborn child. If he doesn't, the birth would be so powerful and explosive, the entire universe will be reborn. An explosion replicating the Big Bang. I I just want to put that into perspective real quick. A god is giving birth. That child is much more powerful than its creator, that it will literally create a new universe. That is some end-level boss right there. Like, that's like you traveled through a long dungeon just to get to the end, and it's like, final boss time, and the final boss is a new universe. That's insane. This whole interaction brings up a big conversation that Trigun loves to talk about. Is it worth going through all this pain and suffering just to possibly live a better life tomorrow? Or should we just begin with a blank slate and start over? It also brings up Vash's biggest fear. The last thing he wants to do is take a life, even if it means having the whole universe destroyed. He doesn't want to break that vow, and that's a vow I completely understand and respect. Faced with the biggest decision of his life, but he doesn't have much time to think, as the plant literally begins giving birth right in front of him. Vash stares down the barrel of his gun, faced with the biggest choice he's ever made. Fair warning. What happens next is a little crazy. So, Vash shoots the child, but it doesn't die. It released its power like a vacuum, creating its own universe. This solution is pretty cool, but kinda came out of nowhere. Vash always finds a way to solve a problem, don't get me wrong, no matter how broken, battered, or how unwinnable the situation might be. Vash always finds a way to not only save his lives, lives of townspeople, lives of his friends, but also somehow he saves the villain's life without killing them. And it's just that this happened just far too quickly. I completely understand that this is a one-shot, and you can only have so many pages to tell your story, but it just kinda seemed like a Deus Ex Machina. Yeah, Vash is a gunman. We've seen it in episode 2. He dodges bullets from someone shooting at him by looking at the direction the barrel is moving. That's highly skilled. And he himself, as you saw from the first chapter, is an amazing shot. So, this solution does make sense, but like I said, it's just a little too perfect, perhaps. The chapter ends with Vash leaving Veronica off on another adventure. Overall, this was a great chapter. The art is beautiful. Introducing a brand new character and original character in Veronica was very cool. I wish she did more to impact the story. As soon as we find out that the VTS was Vash, she completely takes a back seat in the story. She doesn't do almost anything or have any more lines to really speak of. And the chapter forcing Vash to almost kill someone is really cool. I don't want any of what I think are some of the flaws in this story to take away. This is still an amazing chapter, and Boichi should be very, very proud of their work. Great job. Now let's move on to the final chapter of the video. Chapter 4, Denizens of the Sand Planet. Written and drawn by Satoshi Mizukami. I'm so sorry. I will hopefully get better at this in the future. This is another fairly short chapter, just like chapter 3, but does ask a lot of very big questions at the end of the day. And one question that's unfortunately still very relevant in the world today: if people of all walks of life could live in harmony with one another. And not to get a little bleak or anything, but I truly don't think we could live in a utopia. However, I do think we all can get as close as possible and all grow together and live in a somewhat utopian world. It won't be perfect, because obviously nothing is perfect, and I fully do believe that there is no such thing as perfection. You just gotta go out and try. And if you don't try, then nothing's gonna happen. So just go out and try to be a good person, and maybe one day, hopefully, we can live in a world where all walks of life could seemingly get along with one another. And getting along does not mean agreeing by any means. You obviously have your own opinion, and you can stick by that. And I have every right to my opinion and everything, and we can totally disagree, and that's fine. I don't really see why people who disagree see they should hate each other or anything. Just have the conversation. Having a conversation will start that path down to a more peaceful world. I'm sorry I got way off track there. This chapter asks a lot of big questions. Also, doesn't focus on Vash as a protagonist. It's actually told from a rogue plant's perspective, which is really cool to see how we're talking about a TRIGUN story where Vash is our protagonist, but it doesn't always have to be about him. It can be about the world and the inhabitants of the world. To be fair, Vash might not even be in this chapter at all. He could be this guy, but he never says his name is Vash. He does look very similar to him, and his hair is black. If you know, you know. If you're wondering about Vash's hair color and everything, and if you'd like to hear the whole story of the manga retold and everything, I highly suggest you go and check out Bonsai Pop's video on it. Link in the description down below and in the cards somewhere, either in that corner or that corner. They're an amazing YouTube channel, and they post a ton of awesome anime content. And they're also really cool dudes who run the channel. This chapter also shows us more of the sandworms. There aren't many animals that live in the world of No Man's Land, obviously because it's a giant deserted planet. Maybe some birds, a few weird animals every now and again. This cat, for some reason, that somehow makes a cameo in every single episode, even though the episode before, they were in a completely different town, owned by a completely different person, and were doing completely different things. I don't know if it's the same cat, but headcanon, it's the same cat, and it's just going on its own journey. And the only other animal that we know of are the sandworms. Not much is really known about them, but it's just really cool that we get to see more of them in this chapter. The rogue plant goes by the name Tran, an orphan boy who leaves the orphanage to join a young girl, who he calls Mother. But her name is to be revealed as Zaj. Z-A-J. I don't know how you would pronounce that, but I'm just gonna go with Zaj. And somehow, she has command over the sandworms. It's not exactly explained why, but again, it's a really short chapter. We don't really have that many pages to explain it and her powers and her connection, but whatever. Who cares? Still very cool. Zaj and Tran travel town to town judging the humans they come across. It seems as though the two have been wronged by humans before in the past, seeking some sort of retribution. That being the possible end for humans. Even though the two look very young, they speak as though they've been alive much longer. Tran, while traveling, utters the most interesting phrase in the whole chapter. Why do you hate humans? You were on the side of those killing humans in the old war. So, at some point, there was a war that happened in No Man's Land. Don't know how, when, or why, but there was a war at some point in this anthology story, which is crazy to think about. It was probably over water, land, natural resources, something. But just the fact that a war seemingly happened, and it kind of explains why everyone is so poor and is so tattered, and no one really seems to trust anyone else. That sentence that he utters just adds a completely new level of story. The fact that a war did happen for this story, it just adds so much more context to this story specifically. It gives it a lot more weight. The two and a group of sandworms happen upon 4 travelers. All of them run as fast as they can from the sandworms, except one. He clumsily notices 2 people standing atop of a worm, focusing only on the beast itself. He utters the word beautiful to the worm that stands before him. The man introduces himself as Lemuel. He has spent his whole life researching the sandworms. Curious as to how the girl trained them, she replies with another piece of lore and storytelling. I didn't tame it. It's me. The human form is a terminal operated by the worm. Don't ask me how this makes any sense, because it really doesn't. It's so cool, you don't even need logic to explain it. It's just cool. It's just an anime thing. Cool just happens, you just gotta accept it, and the reason you can accept it and not have an issue with it is because it's so cool. The two tell Emil that they've set upon a journey to judge humanity and see if humans really do deserve to live or die. Zaj asks Lemil if he believes that plants, worms, and humans could really live in harmony, and he utters with, "I don't know. I'd like to find out for myself." Zaj is so taken back by this answer, she stays silent. I really think anyone would have responded the same way. Humans can barely get along with each other as it is. Adding 2 other species to the mix? Who knows what could happen? We observed humans. This phrase is uttered over and over again across 2 whole pages. We constantly observe each other in pity, interest, wonder, excitement, anger, jealousy. Almost any time you look at someone, you observe them in some way, physically, mentally, or even with your own morality. The 3 stand upon a lonely rock in a sea of sand. They discuss if humans indeed do deserve to live or die. Zaj says humans cling to plants for survival, using them to harvest energy. Also that humans are not designed to live in this kind of environment. The worms, however, thrive in this desert landscape. Zaj actually brings up a pretty good point, honestly. It seems as though the sandworms are the only things that are thriving in this environment. Humans are literally clinging to another race just so they can survive. Just a little bit how humanity is kind of clinged on to technology, and it's somewhat taken over our everyday lives. Tran's arm converges into a wing, resembling more of an angel more than a bird. Lemil was entranced by it, just as he was by the worms. Zaj notices this look on his face and calls off the attack. Tran was just testing Zaj. He would never have actually killed anyone. He just wanted to find someone that would get along with worms and plants. Lemil just happens to be that person. The 3 decide to build a town for themselves and researchers of the worms so they can be studied further. The chapter ends with a photo, a happy one at that, portraying a family of 3 living in harmony, all from a different race, beautifully showing that differences can indeed live together. It's an absolutely beautiful ending to this chapter. It really does bring some hope inside of me that someday, somewhere, there will be a place where everyone will just get along with everyone else and we'll all be happy. We got a little philosophical there in that chapter. There's a part 2 to this video. Hopefully it'll be coming out soon. Meep, meep, meep. There was a car outside. I don't know if you could hear that. Alright, before we go, I'd just like to say thank you all so much for watching. And if you somehow made it all the way to the end of the video, even bigger thank you goes out to you. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day. I'll see you dudes later. Peace.